I did a teardown on the Switch 2 dock, and after I did that, I did take a look at some of the chips inside, and I sort of came to the determination that it could support VRR, but there's still a lot of questions around that possibility since, well, Nintendo hasn't enabled it in docked mode. It works in handheld mode, but we really only have like limited experience with it. However, something interesting has happened recently because apparently you can use a Steam Deck to verify that VRR does work through the Switch 2 dock because you can use the Steam Deck with it. Now, you need a specific setup to make that happen, which I went ahead and put together here. Just thought it'd be an interesting video to see it in action and, yeah, verify that the Switch 2 dock can indeed use VRR, which then in turn means it would kind of be Nintendo's move at that point, since they could enable it in the future, and that is something people are certainly hoping for. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, or hey, think about it, I'm about to plug the Steam Deck into the Switch 2 dock. At any time, Nintendo could just bust down the door, so you gotta throw a like on the video, at least for that, and subscribe if you're new. So here's the plan, okay? I have this cable. It is a USB-C female to male, and what it's really gonna do is extend the dock USB-C out, and then let me plug it into the Steam Deck. I have power already plugged in using the official Nintendo adapter, and then I have an ultra high speed HDMI cable here. Although you should be able to use just the one that Nintendo packaged with it. I just don't feel like unplugging it from my TV and my setup and stuff upstairs for now. So this should work fine though. Plenty of bandwidth and everything with that. Okay. Now I also have a monitor here that has support for 144 hertz. VRR, 4K, the whole thing. So it doesn't really have any limitations there that would get in the way. So let's check this out. Now, here's the issue we run into with the dock. Naturally, it is spring loaded, so it just at all times sort of wants to push it out of the way, like kind of get it out of there. So I'm hoping that it plays nice and just sort of holds the cable there and can kind of allow me to maybe feed it under here, so that it'll kind of hold it for me. So it's kind of a janky setup overall. A lot of hoping that it doesn't, that I don't necessarily lose it here. So let's see what we get. We should hopefully have the monitor kick on with the Steam Deck then. All right, so there we go. It did indeed come on using the Switch 2 dock. So yes, the Switch 2 dock will work with different PC gaming handhelds. Just naturally, they don't fit in the dock, so you have to sort of do this to make it happen. Anyway, what we can now look for are a few features, specifically VRR, but we can also look for maybe higher refresh rate as an example, or higher resolution. So I've been playing around with the monitor and the display and the whole thing with compatibility. I've pretty much landed on 2560 by 1440 at 120 hertz. Figure that would make the most sense, and that's probably what we would see Nintendo even attempt here, with upscaling naturally to like 4K. But there we are, we have 120 hertz going there at 1440p. So let's go back and let's go over to VRR, which looks like we can enable it. There we go. And there we are. Yeah, so VRR is on, again, through the Switch 2 dock. I also have HDR enabled as well. I guess I can try jumping into a game to try it out and see what we have. So I started up the Stellar Blade demo. I figure that hopefully will run well enough maybe to put it in that VRR range. And from what I remember with Stellar Blade and a lot of the reports for the Steam Deck version, which I played it on the PS5, so I didn't play it here on the Steam Deck, was that it ran really well. Like, it was well optimized, and when you turn it on, it has a Steam Deck specific setup in the settings menu. So if you just kind of leave it at that, and we have the frame rate on the right side. Actually, what I think I'm going to do is have the target at 120. I think is what we're going to go for here. I mean, the Steam Deck's limited just in general, obviously, since when you take it and put it on a big screen, it's not going to perform, or it's not going to look as good, obviously, as the smaller screen, which is what it's really designed for. But I have to give Shift Up credit. I mean, this game is just optimized well for the Steam Deck. Like, they did a very good job with it. And if this was on a smaller screen, like, it looks okay. I mean, it's definitely blown up, and there's a lot of breakup around the characters and stuff. If this was on the smaller screen here with the Steam Deck, it'd be very difficult to notice, if at all. And you can see the frame rate is jumping around quite a bit. But I know in this game they have a lot of tricks and stuff that they're doing. Like you can see, if you look in the menu, it's just all kinds of AMD super fidelity. Like it's all over the place. So it's I mean it's running well here. It's all over the place in terms of like its frame rate range. But it's going through the, funny enough, playing on the Steam Deck, going through the Switch 2 dock on a PC monitor. Yes, playing Stellar Blade. So here's Final Fantasy 16. I realize I can just turn on the Steam. Like Steam Deck has their own performance overlay completely, and that gives a ton of information. And I think the monitor's FPS counter was going a little weird anyway. So this should be much more accurate just about across the board. Final Fantasy 16 just was not set up well for the Steam Deck. I mean, there's a ton of compromises that are made here just to get it to run, visually speaking. And even then, I mean, it is bouncing, as you can see. Seems okay. The image is just like, I mean, blown up completely here on this Steam Deck. It's one of those things where I think about what the Steam Deck 2 could be, and if we still have the Steam Deck 1 pulling off stuff like this, it could be it could be kind of like that Switch 1 to Switch 2 jump where it is significant, like it's very noticeable. Yeah, I know this one's gonna hurt Switch owners. I mean, we had the cloud version. It's like, great. Thanks, Square. I mean, technically they have the ability now to make it right with a Switch 2 version of it. But here, look, we can play Kingdom Hearts through the Switch 2 dock now natively, just using the Steam Deck. Again, weird combination to make it all happen, but I mean technically it works. So we'll see how it runs here. My experience playing Kingdom Hearts on the Steam Deck OLED has been very, very good. High frame rates. It looks great on the OLED screen, the whole thing. Unlocked frame rate. It just runs at for the Steam Deck, just like 1280 by 720. That's just what it generally wants to kick out here by default. So let's jump in. And pretty much as expected, it's running with no issues at all. Generally, when I play, like especially with the Final Remix stuff, I would still just jump to Kingdom Hearts 2. I've replayed Kingdom Hearts 1 since back in the day. I think 2 was such a big jump for them. And really the first one, to be honest, would just be something I would go back to for nostalgia purposes only, because I think 2 is just so much better of a game overall. I just remember when the game came out on the PS2, it was a huge deal. I feel like this would have been like late middle school for me when it came out. The first Kingdom Hearts. And it was a shame when it was announced as a cloud version for the Switch, and I think Square Enix needs to go back and fix that for the Switch too. But for anyone out there hoping for a good running version of it, I mean, it runs really well here on the Steam Deck OLED. Yeah, we're running at a lower resolution in this instance, but you could probably pump the resolution up and it would still run well enough here. Again, going through hey, there you go. At least the Switch 2 dock saw native Kingdom Hearts. Just had to go through the Steam Deck for it. But yes, as you can see, VRR is detected and works. If you don't have it enabled, for example, if I turn it off with the monitor and there's a break somewhere in the connection for it, this will just say your display does not support it. If I used an HDMI cable that was also not up to the task, same deal. So this essentially telling us, yes, the dock is able to do it. Also, to go a bit further here, there have been other tests that have been done in this same way with the Switch 2 dock and the Steam Deck. One example over on Reddit showed a person pumping the resolution up to 4K and still being able to get 120 frames, yes, on a less visually demanding game, but really just showing that the Switch 2 dock is capable of all these different things alongside of VRR and HDR being enabled. Here's the situation, though, why this doesn't necessarily line up one-to-one, I would say, with the Switch 2. It's because that's using NVIDIA, this using AMD, and there are going to be differences, especially through DisplayPort to HDMI, that may not be as straightforward as what we're seeing here. So while to me, everything looks like it's lined up for Nintendo to have VR enabled eventually, it may take a little bit of time, if ever, right? So we can't necessarily count on it happening because it hasn't happened yet. So it is up in the air and it's up to Nintendo. So yes, it is at this point Nintendo's move, but as we've seen here, seems to work fine. The dock is quite capable in terms of hardware and pass-through. The fan has been going off quite a bit in the dock, I will say that, and it's been going off quite a bit here with the Steam Deck, and this is just not a very practical setup anyway. I guess the Switch 2 dock could be reshelled. We've seen that with the Switch 1, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense considering there are other docks you can get for the Steam Deck that would work just fine as well. Still though, it just shows that at least this component in the chain between the Switch 2, the TV, and VRR should be good to go. So here's hoping Nintendo is able to figure that out at some point in the future and add that as a feature down the road. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Thought it was fun, saw it online, thought we could try it out here in real time since I had all the stuff, including the very odd high-speed USB-C female to male connector. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.